Ma'am, empty your bag right now. The words cut through the store like a blade, sharp, loud, undeniable. Officer Daniel Hayes did not raise his voice, but he did not need to. Authority carried it for him. Every head turned. Every cart stopped. Naomi Brooks froze mid-step, one hand still resting on the strap of her worn canvas bag, the other holding a small bottle of water she had not paid for yet. Fluorescent lights hummed above, too bright, too cold, washing her skin in pale reflections that made every movement visible. She did not pull away when his hand hovered near her arm. She did not argue. She simply looked at him. Tired eyes. Steady. Awake. The kind of stillness that does not come from fear, but from control. Hayes took a half-step closer, his radio crackling softly at his shoulder. We've had a report, he continued slower now, letting the words settle into the space between them. Item concealment. You fit the description. A pause. A deliberate one. The store breathed around them. Someone coughed. A child whispered. A phone camera lifted quietly from behind a shelf. Naomi shifted her weight, just slightly, enough for the light to catch the edge of her face. There was no panic there. Only calculation. She glanced up, not at him, but past him. To the ceiling. To the small black dome camera tucked in the corner above aisle 6. 1 second. Maybe less. Then her eyes came back down. No one noticed. Except a young employee near the register who suddenly stopped scanning items mid-beep. Go ahead, Naomi said softly, placing her bag on the counter herself. Not defensive. Not submissive. Controlled. The zipper slid open with a clean, deliberate sound that echoed louder than it should have. Hayes leaned in, scanning quickly. His movements were practiced. Efficient. But his jaw was tight. He pulled out a folded receipt. A pack of gauze. A pen. What aisle did you grab this from? He asked, holding up the gauze without looking at her. Naomi's voice did not rise. Aisle 7. Medical supplies. Third shelf from the bottom. Inventory tag ends in 429. The employee's scanner beeped again. Then stopped. Hayes paused. Just for a fraction of a second. Then continued. And this? He asked, tapping the water bottle. Front cooler. Left side. Second row. Price is $1.29 before tax. A man near the entrance shifted uncomfortably. Another phone lifted. Naomi reached down as a wallet slipped from a shopper's coat pocket nearby, hitting the floor with a soft thud. She picked it up without opening it, without glancing inside, and handed it back with a simple nod. You dropped this. The man hesitated before taking it, eyes flicking between her and the officer. Something unspoken passed through the air. Hayes straightened slightly, adjusting his stance. The radio on his shoulder crackled again, louder this time. He pressed it once, muttering a code under his breath, controlled, official, meant to dominate the space. Naomi tilted her head, just enough to hear. Then she responded. Calm. Clear. Precise. Using the same code. 1085 cleared. No probable cause. Silence hit the store like a dropped weight. Hayes looked at her now. Really looked. Not at her clothes. Not at her bag. At her. And for the first time, something shifted. If this moment made your chest tighten, stay with it, because something is not adding up here, and Naomi Brooks is not the person they think she is. Hayes did not respond right away. The code hung in the air between them, unfamiliar coming from her voice, wrong in a way he could not immediately explain. Naomi stood exactly where she was, hands relaxed at her sides now, her open bag resting on the counter like quiet evidence of nothing. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, or maybe the silence made it feel that way. A woman near the checkout shifted her weight, her cart wheels squeaking softly against the tile. Naomi felt the ache in her shoulders settle in again, the kind that came after 12 hours on her feet, lifting, turning, checking vitals, listening to people who did not always say what they meant. She had clocked out less than 40 minutes ago. The faint smell of antiseptic still clung to her sleeves. Hayes cleared his throat, trying to reclaim the moment. "Where did you learn that code?" he asked, sharper now, but not as steady as before. Naomi did not answer immediately. She reached into her bag slowly, careful, deliberate, and pulled out her folded time sheet. The paper was creased, edges soft from being handled too many times. She set it on the counter next to the gauze. "Graveyard shift," she said quietly. "St. Mary's. 4th floor." It was not an answer to his question. Not directly. But it landed. A man behind Hayes leaned slightly to see the paper, reading the printed hospital logo before quickly looking away. Naomi's fingers brushed against the counter as she straightened the receipt Hayes had pulled out earlier. Small movements. Controlled. Grounding. "You ever been there past 2 in the morning?" she added, her voice still low, almost reflective, as if she were speaking to herself more than to him. "It gets real quiet. Machines do most of the talking." Hayes frowned, his posture tightening again. "That is not what I asked," he said. Naomi nodded once, acknowledging, but not correcting herself. Her eyes drifted, just for a second, to the reflection in the glass cooler door behind him. She could see the angle of the camera mounted above aisle 6 again. She could see the blind edge where it did not quite reach. She could see Hayes standing just inside that margin. "People assume things in places like this," she continued, softer now, but clearer, each word placed carefully. "Uniforms. Badges. Scrubs. They think they know who belongs and who does not." A young cashier swallowed hard, her hands frozen above the register keys. Naomi exhaled slowly through her nose, steadying herself. She was tired. Not just from the shift. From the weight of moments exactly like this. The quick judgment. The eyes. The waiting for her to prove something she never took. Hayes shifted his stance again, glancing briefly toward the store manager, who still had not stepped forward. "Not yet. We are going to check the cameras," Hayes said finally, his voice firmer now, clinging to procedure. Naomi gave a small nod. No resistance. No relief either. Just acceptance. "That would be best," she replied. Her tone did not change. Not a hint of urgency. As if she had already seen what they were about to look for. As if this part had already happened somewhere else, some time before. A faint smile almost touched her lips, but disappeared before anyone could be sure it was there at all. She rested her hand lightly on the counter, fingertips tapping once, twice, then still. Waiting. Not for permission. Not for approval. For the truth to catch up. The word cameras did not move the room. It tightened it. Like a string pulled too far. Hayes turned toward the store manager, a man in a pressed shirt who had been pretending to organize receipts but had not taken his eyes off Naomi since the moment the accusation landed. "Back office," Hayes said, already moving, already reclaiming ground with motion. The manager hesitated, just a fraction too long, then nodded and stepped forward. "This way." Naomi did not follow. She did not need to. She remained at the counter, her bag still open, her belongings laid out in plain view like quiet witnesses. The door to the back office swung open with a soft mechanical click, then closed behind them. The store exhaled, but not fully. Conversations did not return. They lowered. People leaned closer to each other, whispering, eyes flicking back to Naomi as if she might disappear if they looked away too long. Naomi shifted her weight again, the ache in her lower back pressing deeper now. She placed the gauze back into her bag, folded the receipt once, twice, precise movements that kept her hands busy while her mind stayed still. Not racing. Not guessing. Waiting. Inside the office, the air felt different. Cooler. Tighter. A small monitor sat on the desk, already glowing with a pause frame from earlier that morning. The manager fumbled slightly with the mouse, clicking through timestamps too quickly, skipping past the moment that mattered. Hayes leaned in, jaw set, eyes scanning. "Rewind," he said. The manager obeyed, slower now. The footage rolled back. Aisle 6. Aisle 7. Customers moving in and out of frame, ordinary, forgettable. Then Naomi appeared on screen. Hayes leaned closer. There she was. Entering from the left. Bag over her shoulder. Same steady pace. Same calm. The manager froze the frame. That is her, he said, unnecessary words filling space. Hayes did not respond. He watched. Naomi moved down aisle 7, reaching for the gauze. Simple. Clean. No hesitation. She checked the label. Put it in her basket. Nothing hidden. Nothing rushed. Hayes's eyes narrowed. Keep going. The footage continued. Naomi walked toward the front cooler. Reached for the water bottle. Placed it on top of the gauze. Visible. Always visible. Hayes shifted his stance, something in his posture losing its edge, but not yet breaking. Then something else entered the frame. A second figure. Store employee. Yum. Nervous movements. The employee adjusted items on a nearby shelf, glancing over her shoulder more than once. Hayes leaned closer. Pause. The manager clicked. The image froze. The employee's hand hovered near a different item, one not in Naomi's basket. Hayes felt it before he understood it. A small misalignment. A detail out of place. Roll it forward, he said, quieter now. The footage resumed. The employee moved quickly, too quickly for someone simply organizing. An item slipped from her hand, not dropped, not accidental. Placed. Not into Naomi's bag, but onto a shelf edge, then nudged, just slightly, into a position that could confuse, could imply. Hayes's breath slowed. Go back, he said. The manager rewound. Frame by frame now. Slower. The motion became clearer with each second. Intentional. Controlled. Not theft. Not concealment. Something else. Something staged. Hayes straightened, just a little. The room felt smaller. The hum of the monitor louder. Check the angle from aisle 6, he added. The manager switched feeds. A different view. Wider. Clearer. Naomi again. The same movements. The same calm. And there, in the corner of the frame, the employee again. Reaching. Placing. Looking up. Not at Naomi. At the camera. Hayes's hand tightened at his side. The pieces did not just shift. They locked into place. And suddenly, the story he had walked in with no longer held. Not even close. He stared at the screen, then at the timestamp, then back again, as if looking twice might change it. It did not. It only made it clearer. Outside, Naomi stood exactly where he had left her. Waiting. Not for judgment. For confirmation. The office door opened faster than it had closed, the handle snapping back against the wall with a dull click that made a few customers near the counter flinch. Hayes stepped out first, but something in his posture had changed. Not weaker. Not yet. But less certain. The manager followed half a step behind, his face pale, his hands no longer pretending to organize anything. Naomi did not move. She had not shifted an inch. The store seemed to lean toward them, waiting. Hayes walked straight back to the counter, each step measured, deliberate, as if he could still control the rhythm of what came next. He looked at Naomi, but not the way he had before. There was no quick judgment in his eyes now. There was calculation. Reassessment. We are still verifying, he said, voice firm, louder than necessary, meant for the room as much as for her. A murmur rippled through the store. Someone whispered that they saw the video. Another said the officer was backtracking. Naomi heard all of it. She did not react. Her fingers rested lightly on the edge of the counter, still, grounded. Hayes placed one hand on the surface, leaning in just slightly. You knew where the cameras were, he added, sharper now, trying to regain footing. You answered with radio codes. That is not normal. Naomi met his gaze without hesitation. Neither is being stopped without cause, she replied, calm, even, her voice carrying just enough to reach the edges of the room. The manager shifted beside Hayes, clearly uncomfortable. "Officer, the footage shows," he began, but Hayes cut him off with a small motion of his hand, not aggressive, but final. He was not ready to let the narrative slip completely. Not in front of witnesses. Not like this. Hayes straightened, scanning the store briefly, noticing the phones now openly raised, the quiet tension turning into something more dangerous for him. Not anger. Not yet. But attention. The kind that records. The kind that remembers. He turned back to Naomi. "Step aside from the counter," he said, attempting to reassert control through instruction. Naomi did not move immediately. A beat passed. Then she stepped back exactly 1 foot, no more, no less, placing herself just outside the reach of his shadow under the fluorescent lights. The movement was precise. Intentional. Like she had measured it before. Hayes noticed. It unsettled him more than the footage. "You said aisle 7? He continued, voice tightening. "You corrected inventory. You spoke in codes. You expect me to believe that is coincidence?" Naomi's expression did not change. But something behind her eyes sharpened. "I expect you to believe what you saw," she answered. No emotion. No challenge. Just fact. The manager swallowed hard, glancing between them, then at the customers, then back at Hayes. The pressure in the room shifted again. This was no longer just about a bag. Or a bottle of water. It was about who was right. And who would admit it. Hayes exhaled slowly, but the breath did not steady him. It only made the silence louder. He reached for his radio again, pressing the button, speaking into it with controlled urgency, calling for confirmation, for backup, for something to anchor him back into authority. The static answered first. Then a voice. Distant. Formal. Naomi listened without turning her head, her posture unchanged, her presence filling the space without effort. She had not raised her voice once. She had not stepped forward. And yet the balance in the room had shifted toward her in a way no one could ignore. Hayes lowered the radio slowly, his grip tightening just slightly. The first crack had already formed. And everyone could see it. The voice on the radio came back sharper this time, not distant anymore, not casual. Hayes listened, his face tightening with each word, his eyes flicking once toward Naomi, then away, then back again as if he could not decide where to land. "Repeat that," he said into the receiver, slower now, controlled, but something underneath it was slipping. The response came again. Clear. Formal. Uncomfortable. The kind of tone that does not ask questions. The kind that confirms them. Hayes lowered the radio, but his hand did not leave it. Not yet. The store felt smaller. Closer. Like the walls had moved in a few inches without anyone noticing. Naomi remained exactly where she stood, her posture unchanged, her breathing steady, her eyes not on him now, but on the reflection in the glass cooler behind him, tracking every movement without turning her head. The manager stepped forward, unable to hold it back any longer. "Officer, the footage shows she did not take anything," he said, his voice quieter than before, but it carried, because the room was listening for it. Hayes did not respond immediately. He looked at Naomi again, but this time it was different. Not suspicion. Not authority. Recognition. Partial. Unwanted. "You accessed internal language," he said finally, his voice lower, more controlled, like he was narrowing the scope, trying to isolate her instead of the situation. "You tracked camera angles. You anticipated procedure." A pause. A longer one this time. "That is not something a random shopper does." Naomi's fingers moved once against the counter, a soft tap, barely audible, but precise. Then still again. "Neither is misreading evidence in front of a room full of people," she replied, her tone unchanged, her volume steady, not louder, not softer, just exact. A ripple moved through the customers, not loud, but present. Phones were no longer hidden. They were held up openly now, recording every word, every shift, every hesitation. Hayes noticed. He could not ignore it anymore. His jaw tightened, not in anger but in pressure. The kind that builds when control starts slipping in small, undeniable pieces. "We are not done here," he said, stepping closer again, closing the space he had just lost, his presence attempting to reclaim dominance through proximity. Naomi did not step back this time. Not even an inch. The distance between them held. Fixed. Balanced. "No," she said, meeting his eyes directly, her voice still calm, but now carrying something sharper underneath. Not aggression. Precision. "We are not." The manager shifted again, clearly caught between them, between authority and truth, between what had been assumed and what was now visible. "Officer, we should document this properly," he said, glancing at the phones, at the customers, at the situation turning into something larger than a single accusation. Hayes did not look at him. He kept his eyes on Naomi. "You said 1085 cleared?" he continued, almost quietly now, like he was testing the words, replaying them, trying to understand where they came from. "That code is not public." Naomi held his gaze. No hesitation. No flinch. "No," she said. A beat passed. The hum of the lights grew louder again. The air felt thinner. "It is not." Hayes exhaled slowly, but the breath did not steady him this time. It revealed him. The smallest shift in his stance. The slight tightening of his grip on the radio. The flicker in his eyes that said something had moved beyond his control. And the room saw it. Not all at once. But enough. Enough for the silence to change. Enough for the weight to settle differently. Naomi did not smile. She did not move. But the space around her felt anchored in a way that no badge, no voice, no raised instruction could match anymore. And for the first time since he stepped into the store, Hayes was not leading the moment. He was reacting to it. The silence stretched too long this time, not sharp, not explosive, but heavy, like something pressing down on the room inch by inch. Hayes did not step back. Instead, he shifted forward again, slower now, more deliberate, his voice dropping into something colder, more procedural. "Ma'am," he said, the word no longer polite, now formal, distancing. "At this point, I am going to need you to remain here until this is fully resolved." The tone changed everything. It was no longer a question. It was not even an accusation anymore. It was containment. Naomi felt it immediately. Not in his words. In the space around them. The way the manager stopped speaking. The way the customers leaned back just slightly, as if creating distance from something they did not want to be part of. The phones were still up, but quieter now, more cautious. The energy shifted. And for the first time since it started, Naomi's shoulders dropped just a fraction. Not surrender. Fatigue. Real, human fatigue. Her eyes flickered once, not to the camera this time, not to the reflection, but down to her hands. The faint imprint of hospital gloves still marked her skin. 12 hours. No sleep. No break long enough to sit. She exhaled slowly. Hayes noticed. He took it as movement. As a shift in advantage. "You said you worked graveyard," he continued, his voice steady, controlled, building again. "That does not explain access to restricted communication codes. That does not explain knowledge of surveillance blind spots." He paused, letting the weight of that settle into the room, into the recording phones, into the minds of everyone watching. "Right now, what it looks like," he added, carefully choosing each word, "is that you are deliberately interfering with an active situation." A murmur moved again. Different this time. Less certain. Less supportive. Naomi looked up slowly. The calm was still there, but thinner now, stretched. The kind of calm that holds, but just barely. "I opened my bag," she said quietly. "I stayed where you asked. I answered your questions." Her voice did not rise. It did not break. But something inside it shifted. Not weakness. "Wait. And you are still standing here," Hayes replied, stepping just a little closer, not aggressive, but firm, reclaiming inches of space like territory. Because this is not finished. The manager glanced at him, uneasy, then at Naomi, then back at the customers. No one spoke. The room held its breath again, but this time it was not for Naomi. It was for what Hayes might do next. Naomi's fingers curled slightly against the counter, then relaxed. Her eyes drifted once more, not upward, not outward, but inward, like she was measuring something no one else could see. For a brief second, the control she had carried since the beginning flickered. Small. Almost invisible. But real. And Hayes caught it. That was enough. If you have nothing else to add, he said, his tone tightening, then we proceed formally. The words landed heavier than anything before. Formal meant reports. Questions. Time. Delay. Doubt. The kind of process that does not care about truth in the moment. Only documentation later. Naomi did not respond right away. Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. The store felt colder. The lights harsher. The distance between her and the door suddenly longer than it had been a minute ago. A customer lowered their phone. Another looked away. The manager hesitated, as if he wanted to speak, but did not. And for the first time, it felt like Naomi might lose this. Not because she was wrong, but because the moment was slipping into something bigger than her control. Something slower. Something harder to stop. If you feel that shift, that moment where truth starts to fade under pressure, stay with it, because this is where most people break. And right now, Naomi Brooks looks like she is about to. Naomi did not answer right away. The weight of Hayes's words hung in the air, pressing down, waiting for her to either accept it or break under it. For a moment, it looked like she might. Her shoulders lowered slightly, her gaze drifting away from him, not in fear, but in thought. Slow. Precise. Then she reached into her bag again. Not rushed. Not defensive. Deliberate. Hayes tensed immediately, his hand instinctively hovering closer to his radio, eyes narrowing, ready to control whatever came next. But Naomi did not pull out anything threatening. No sudden movement. Just a thin, worn card holder. She placed it gently on the counter. Pushed it forward. 1 inch. Enough for the light to catch the edge. Before you proceed formally, she said, her voice calm again, but now carrying something deeper, something grounded. You might want to listen carefully. Hayes did not touch the card at first. He looked at it. Then at her. Then back again. Suspicion still there. But now mixed with something else. Hesitation. The manager leaned slightly, trying to read it from where he stood, but could not. Naomi did not rush him. She did not repeat herself. She simply waited. Hayes finally reached forward and picked it up. His fingers slowed the moment he turned it over. Not because it was flashy. It was not. Plain. Official. Clean print. But the name. The seal. The department line beneath it. His eyes stopped. Just for a second. Then moved again. Reading. Rereading. The shift was immediate. Subtle. But real. His posture straightened, but not with authority this time. With recognition. Naomi Brooks, he said quietly, the name landing differently now, no longer just a label, but a connection forming in real time. His eyes lifted to hers again. Not above her. Not through her. At her. Forensic Video Analysis Unit. He read, slower, almost under his breath, as if saying it too loud would confirm something he was not ready to accept. The room did not understand the words. Not fully. But they felt the change. Naomi did not react to his tone. She only added one thing. Contract basis, she said. Simple. Direct. External review. Hayes blinked once. That was enough. Everything he had seen in the footage snapped into place. The angles. The timing. The correction. Not luck. Not coincidence. Expertise. Real. Trained. Controlled. He looked back at the card again, then at the manager, then at the customers, the phone still recording, still watching. The balance shifted all at once. Not slowly. Not gradually. Completely. You reviewed internal cases, Hayes said, his voice lower now, no longer projecting, but processing. Naomi held his gaze. Some of them, she replied. No pride. No challenge. Just fact. Hayes's grip on the card tightened slightly, then loosened. His radio remained silent at his side. For the first time since this began, he did not reach for it. He did not speak into it. He did not control the moment through it. He simply stood there, holding proof that the person he had tried to contain had already seen systems far more complex than this one. And understood them. Better than he did in this moment. A faint sound came from the back of the store. Someone whispering. Someone realizing. The manager stepped back half a step, not out of fear, but out of awareness. The situation was no longer what it had been. Not even close. Hayes lowered the card slowly, placing it back on the counter with more care than he had used when he first touched her bag. The movement said everything he had not said yet. Naomi did not move. She did not lean forward. She did not take the card back immediately. She let it sit there. Between them. Like a line that had just been redrawn. And everyone in the room could see it. The card did not move, but everything around it did. The silence shifted first, no longer heavy, no longer uncertain, but sharp, defined, like a line drawn across the room that no one dared to cross. Hayes kept his hand close to the counter, not touching the card again, not reaching for his radio, caught in that narrow space between authority and accountability. The manager stepped forward this time, no hesitation now, his voice steadier, clearer, carried by something stronger than before. Officer, the footage is conclusive, he said, not looking at Naomi, but directly at Hayes. She did not take anything. The employee misrepresented the situation. The word misrepresented hung there, polite, controlled, but everyone understood what it meant. Hayes nodded once, slow, controlled, but the movement felt heavier than it should have. His eyes moved briefly toward the back office, toward the screen he had just left, then back to Naomi. Not to challenge her. To acknowledge what he could not undo. The customers were no longer whispering. They were watching. Openly. Phones steady. Recording everything. Not for curiosity anymore. For clarity. Hayes straightened fully, his shoulders pulling back, but not to dominate the room. To face it. Ma'am, he said, the word different now, no edge, no distance, just formality stripped down to its core. There is no evidence of theft. The sentence landed clean. Final. The kind of statement that ends one story and begins another. Naomi did not respond immediately. She reached forward, picked up her card, slid it back into the holder with the same careful precision she had shown from the start. No rush. No emphasis. Just closure. Hayes continued, his voice steady, but quieter now, no longer projecting to control the room, but speaking into it honestly. You are free to go. The manager exhaled, a breath he had been holding since the beginning. A customer lowered their phone slowly, not because the moment was over, but because the outcome was clear. Justice did not arrive loudly. It settled. Firm. Undeniable. Naomi lifted her bag, placing the gauze and receipt back inside, zipping it closed with the same clean sound as before. No tremor in her hands. No hesitation. Hayes remained where he stood, not blocking her path, not stepping aside dramatically, just present, aware. As she moved past him, the distance between them felt different now. Not authority over subject. Not control over uncertainty. Balance. Earned. The manager turned quickly, calling out to the employee in the back, his tone sharper now, directed, accountable, the consequences already moving forward beyond this moment. The system correcting itself. Not perfectly, but visibly. Naomi reached the front door, her hand resting briefly on the handle. For a fraction of a second, the reflection in the glass caught her face again. Tired. still, unshaken. Behind her, Hayes remained by the counter, the badge still on his chest, but quieter now, heavier with the weight of what had just unfolded. He did not call after her. He did not offer more words. Because nothing he said in this moment would matter more than what had already been seen. Naomi pushed the door open. The soft chime rang out, gentle, ordinary, almost too small for the weight of everything that had just shifted inside. And yet it marked the moment perfectly. Clear. Final. Right. The door closed behind Naomi with a soft click that barely carried beyond the glass, but inside it echoed. Not in sound. In what it left behind. The store did not return to normal right away. It could not. The air still held the shape of what had happened, the space where assumption had stood too confidently, where a voice had carried authority without question, and where one quiet refusal to bend had shifted everything. Hayes remained where he was, his hands resting lightly on the counter now, not gripping, not directing, just still. The badge on his chest had not changed. The uniform had not changed. But something underneath it had. Not visible. Not loud. Just heavier. The kind of weight that comes when a moment does not go the way you expected, and you realize it should not have in the first place. The manager moved again, calling instructions toward the back, his voice firm now, not nervous, correcting, documenting, making sure the system followed through on what had been exposed. It was not dramatic. It was not loud. But it was necessary. Because truth does not mean anything if it does not lead to action. A customer near the register looked down at her phone, replaying what she had just recorded, her expression shifting from curiosity to something closer to understanding. Not just what happened. Why it mattered. Because it was never just about a bottle of water. Or a bag. Or a single moment in a store. It was about how quickly a person can be reduced to a suspicion. How easily a voice can be believed when it carries power. And how rare it is for someone to stand still in that pressure and not disappear. Outside, Naomi walked at the same steady pace she had held from the beginning. The evening air met her face, cooler, quieter, free of the hum of fluorescent lights and the weight of watching eyes. She did not look back. Not because she did not care. But because she did not need to. She had already done what most people never get the chance to do. She had held her ground long enough for the truth to catch up. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket, a reminder of the life waiting beyond that moment, another shift, another room, another set of people who would not know what just happened inside that store. And that was the point. Most moments like this never get seen. Never get corrected. They pass quietly, leaving something behind that no one names. But this one did not. This one stayed long enough to be witnessed. Long enough to change direction. Long enough to remind everyone in that room that confidence is not always accuracy, and authority is not always truth. Back inside, Hayes finally stepped away from the counter, not rushed, not avoiding, but aware. A single moment had forced him to pause, to look again, to listen differently. It did not erase what happened. It could not. But it marked it. And sometimes that is where change begins. Not in grand gestures. Not in loud apologies. But in the quiet recognition that something was wrong and cannot be ignored again. The store slowly resumed its rhythm, carts rolling, scanners beeping, conversations returning, but softer now, more careful. Something had shifted. Not perfectly. Not permanently. But enough. Enough for the next person who walks through that door to be seen a little differently. Enough for someone watching this to think twice before assuming, before speaking, before deciding. Who someone is without knowing anything about them. Because moments like this are not rare. They are just rarely challenged. And when they are, it takes more than anger. It takes control. It takes patience. It takes a kind of strength that does not need to be loud to be undeniable. If you have ever felt that pressure, that moment where you are seen before you are known, then you understand exactly what stood in that store tonight. And if this stayed with you even for a second, carry it forward, because the next moment like this will not announce itself, but the way you respond to it will matter more than you think.